and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Amanda and I am a therapist living in Lagos and working at my own private practice called NDIDI. And every month, which is the frequency that I can currently maintain at the moment, once a month I release a video. Hopefully I can increase that to twice a month soon. But once a month for now, I put out a video that has to do with either depression, anxiety, trauma, grief, or existential crisis. So if you're interested in any of those topics, please subscribe or click the notification and click the notification bell so that you can know when I release a new video and you can watch it and be educated. And please do well to share these videos with your loved ones, with your friends, with your colleagues, at work, even with a stranger that you think might need the help, but you don't know how to help them, but they know, they'll benefit from just having this information. Share it with them, okay? So now in today's video, I will be talking about grief because there is a lot of grief in the air with the coronavirus pandemic and all the various ways we have lost something or someone we love. It is only right for us to know the right way to handle it so that we don't end up indulging in destructive behaviors that would not benefit us. For us to be able to understand what the transformative power of grief is and to harness it for our own benefit. So for today, I would only be focusing on helping you understand what grief is and what the different stages of grief are. And in other videos, I will talk about how to heal from grief and what the different types of grief are so that you can know what you're suffering from or what you're struggling with and how to take better care of yourself. Okay, so let's get into the video. So now, what is grief? Now, grief is a normal reaction that any human being has to the loss of something or someone that's important to them. You may feel a variety of emotions like sadness, fear, loneliness, even physically cold. You feel anger, you feel shame, disappointment. Grief brings all sorts of feelings to the surface, especially in the time of death of a loved one that you didn't even expect was going to happen, like a very sudden death or the loss of a job. It changes your entire life, which can be very destabilizing and come as a shock to you as a person. But whatever reaction you have to grief, whether you're screaming at the top of your lungs or you're rolling on the floor crying or just sitting down numb, it is still a natural, normal human reaction. Now, you might experience grief for different reasons, like I said before. The death of a loved one, a breakup, a miscarriage, the retirement, losing your job, and it can take time to adjust, to learn to live without this particular thing or person in your life. Now, what are the different stages of grief? The intensity of grief and how long it lasts and the relationship you have with it in terms of how you express it, how it manifests in you is different for everyone. Nobody experiences grief like the other person, or rather, some people would have a different experience of grief and a different way of manifesting their grief compared to other people. Some people tend to have a standard and say that, oh, to really show your grief, you have to be screaming at the top of your voice, you have to be wailing and crying. And then they make people who are like silent grievers, who just choose to be quiet or who process their grief much later, feel like there's something wrong with them or that they don't appreciate the person that they lost or the thing that they lost. So don't make anyone or allow anyone make you feel bad about the way you grieve. Grief presents itself differently for everyone. Okay, so now, even though we all have different ways of showing the way we grieve, a psychiatrist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969 came up with what she called and what we now know as the 5 stages of grief. So as much as we have a variety of responses, many of us tend to fall into a particular category. We tend to feel certain feelings and go through certain steps before we get to the point where we feel a lot better. So the first stage of grief is denial. And in this place, you're asking yourself questions like, why is this happening to me? This can't be happening to me. It's usually at the time when you first get the news and you feel this deep shock within you, like, why is this happening? Why has the universe decided to treat me this way? What wrong have I done? No, this is not real. No, and you refuse to accept it. After you go through that phase of denial, the next stage you move into is anger. You now start to get angry, and it's usually during this time when people tend to blame other people for what has happened to them or whatever has caused the loss, or they end up blaming themselves for the loss happening. So they get angry, they're furious, they're easily irritated, and then after they feel the sense of anger, the next stage they move on to is bargaining. So they're like, okay, fine. What if I did this better? If I had shown up here, if I do this, this person can come back. What can I give to get my job back? What can I sacrifice so that I can have my life go back to normal? There's a whole lot of bargaining to want to give something so you can get back what you lost. But obviously, when something goes away, the chances of it coming back very slim. So when you're in that stage of bargaining, the next stage you move to is the stage of depression, where you feel very, very sad, you feel miserable, you find it very difficult to function, you can't even go outside, you tend to isolate yourself, people don't see you as often, you're not eating, you're not having your bath, you're just filled with so much sadness. But in that place of depression is where the change happens, that as you start to heal and answer the questions that come with grief, which sometimes are existential, like what is the meaning of life, and changing the way that grief asks you to change, which is letting go of the past and the things you had in the past that weren't serving you anymore, and opening up yourself to new possibilities. You then move yourself to the point of acceptance, which is the final stage of grief. And during this stage, you learn how to live with the loss. You learn how to move on from the loss in a way that you don't forget what has happened, you don't forget the person that you lost, you don't forget the memory that you had or you shared in that space, but what you can do is you can remember it without it weighing you down or destroying you or damaging you in any way emotionally. So the 5 stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Now, when people are grieving, they don't necessarily all follow the same path of the stage. You don't just go from one to the other. That's not how it goes. Some people experience all 5 of them at once. Some people experience anger and then go down to acceptance and then come back to shock and then go to depression and then go back to anger. So the stages manifest in very different ways. And the best thing to do when you're grieving is just to take each day as it comes. Don't try to overwhelm yourself. Don't try to do too much. Just take each day, and don't try to build very big dreams for yourself, because you are now learning to live a new life. The life you had before is no longer present in this reality. So that's what I have for grief today. And in my next video, I'm going to be talking about the different types of grief, and I want you to subscribe so you can know it. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I will see you soon. Thank you.